How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, what I've done is I've combined the team selection and the preview for Game Week 22. So yes, an absolutely jam-packed video, but I didn't want to get you guys the preview yesterday when there still was football to be played from Game Week 21. We saw with Harry Kane playing that fixture against Liverpool and going off injured in that fixture. So I wanted to give you guys the maximum amount of news and the latest news as possible. So with the quick turnaround from Game Week 21 to Game Week 22, I decided to combine the two videos that I usually do on a game week basis into one. Now, I know a lot of you guys generally prefer just looking at the team selection, so maybe this will give you guys a nice insight into the previews, as well as giving you some news and some decision-making thoughts that you guys can do for your own FPL squads. But if you really just want to look at the team selection, what I've done, in the description down below, I've posted all the timestamps as well as in the video progression bar. So just hover over that video progression bar and you will see the headings for each section. I do this on all my videos so it's easy to navigate, but in this video, as I said, absolutely jam-packed. We're still going to be looking over the Game Week 22 team, getting a review on Game Week 21 and how my squad got on, looking at the transfers, but before, in and around, and afterwards, we're going to be talking about things like Watchlist, what to do with players like Heung-min Son and Bruno Fernandes, and then finally, we're also going to look at Captaincy, because this is actually quite a nice combination here, as we can look at our Captaincy decisions, and then we can finally combine them in a confirmation of my own Game Week 22 captain going into that Game Week 22 deadline. So if you're still interested in this video, hopefully you still are, use the timestamps down below. If you are getting a little bit bored, this is going to be a longer video, but if you are going to be sticking around, hopefully you do enjoy it. Let's get straight into it. So the watch list has been updated with 2 new entries just because of the fact that we actually brought in Harvey Barnes, who was on the watch list for Game Week 21. But the new additions here are going to be Antonio Rudiger as well as Jack Grealish. So Jack Grealish and Antonio, no introductions needed there. Jack Grealish, an absolutely sensational player and a sensational season that he's having. 6 goals, 11 assists, and he's basically got an attacking return for consecutive game weeks now for a long time. So that's why Jack Grealish is on my watch list. And the nice thing about it is that I can finally bring him into my team because I no longer have Steer, Martinez and Watkins. So I have 2 free spaces for an Aston Villa player, and that's exactly where Jack Grealish is going to be now. Whether I do it this week or next game week, we'll talk about in the transfer decisions, because I might want to give this one a wait and see, and then maybe next game week you can jump on the Jack Grealish bandwagon. The nice thing about Jack Grealish though that happened in Game Week 21 was that his yellow card ban was avoided. So that yellow card ban was increased to a certain amount of games, but the thing is the next yellow card he gets won't equal suspension, and a couple of people were waiting on that. A couple of owners were a little bit worried about that, but luckily in Game Week 21, no yellow cards for Jack Grealish, so you should be able to play for the foreseeable future. Then going on to Mikel Antonio. Now, while Liverpool was quite a tough game for Antonio, I just think the upcoming fixtures might not be next game week, but the game week after that, West Ham have some great fixtures. I thought against Liverpool, it was a tough opposition, so they might have looked a little bit lackluster, but the one thing about West Ham that they continually were doing was trying to get balls in the box, and Antonio and Souček are going to be that main threat. So that's something to watch out for. I think in the upcoming game weeks, from an attacking point of view, Antonio is going to be perfectly fine. And with those added West Ham fixtures coming up, not this game week, next game week, I think I definitely have to look at bringing the West Ham option in. The one thing about my personal team that is a little bit rough is that I do own Fabianski, Soufal, and Souček, so I have to lose one of those options to bring in Antonio. But I do think he'll be worth it. So not this game week, but he's still going to remain on the watch list for next game week. And then finally, Rudiger from Chelsea. So you might be wondering, why is he on your watch list? But the thing about Rudiger is that now that the new manager has come into the side, Antonio Rudiger has started the last 2 games, I do believe. So at 4.5 million, a Chelsea defender looks an absolute steal there. So if you are considering a nice budget option in your defense, look at Rudiger. The one thing and the caveat about Rudiger is that the new manager has shown that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with that rotation. We've spoken about Pep Roulette. This is going to be a new type of roulette because he's changed the formations, he's changed the players, he's going to be changing absolutely everything. So the thing with Rudiger, I think, is that we just got to wait and see. If he does start the foreseeable future games, then we can definitely consider him. But right now, I think he's on the watch list and he'll stay there until I really am confident that he is a set starter. But enough of the watch list, let's get into the preview question. So the first preview question that we're going to be going over and the first talking point is going to be, should you sell Fernandes? So why I said sell, not what to do, as a lot of people have Fernandes. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this, you probably have him in your side, and he's had a couple of blanks in the previous game weeks. Now, I don't think we can look too much into the previous fixtures. I know if you are kind of a form point of view player, then you got to look at that. But from a fixture point of view, like I always play FPL towards the fixtures. I mean, just look at Salah. Salah's blanked for about 7 game weeks in a row, but then he goes and bangs 2 goals against West Ham. And I mean, West Ham is probably a tougher fixture than most. So that's the thing with Fernandes, is I don't think you can sell him with these 4 upcoming fixtures. Southampton have been absolutely terrible recently. I think since that Liverpool game, they haven't beat anyone. Everton this weekend showed if Newcastle can score against Everton, I'm pretty sure Bruno Fernandes can. So that's 2 good fixtures there, I think, for him. And then West Bromwich Albion and Newcastle. So those are great fixtures as well. I think we have to be a little bit patient with Bruno Fernandes. The one thing maybe if Harry Kane came back and Son and Kane were absolutely banging in the goals against Brighton, they went and scored a hat-trick each, then you could consider it. But because of the lack of premium assets that are actually performing well, I think you have to look at keeping Bruno Fernandes. Now, if you want to sell Bruno Fernandes for a player like Salah and you want to captain Salah in the next 2, you could also do that. If you don't want to captain Bruno Fernandes against Southampton, Everton, then that's your own opinion. But I think in game week 24 and 25, he's a heavy favorite for the captaincy. So I think that is something that you have to look a little bit further ahead and anticipate. It might not be worth using a free transfer with the doubles coming up. So I think for a Bruno Fernandes, it's a definite hold in my opinion. Now, going on to the other player that you could potentially be wanting to take out, and that's Heung-min Son. So I didn't watch the Spurs game against Brighton, but I heard they were absolutely terrible. You could probably say they were a little bit dire, but against Chelsea, that's a tough opponent there from a defensive point of view, and it's a top 6 clash. So I wouldn't be looking too much into that one, but if you are a Son owner, I would definitely keep him, because in game week 23, they face West Bromwich Albion, who now have overtaken Leeds as the worst defensive side in the Premier League. That's just based on expected goals conceded, and I'm pretty sure that Son is going to have an absolute field day against West Brom at home in game week 23. So I would keep him for that. You never know, maybe Harry Kane has a miraculous recovery. Apparently, the return date is set for Man City. So game week 24, Harry Kane should be back. But I think that's a little bit too late there. You probably want him back for the West Bromwich game. But I still am keen on keeping Son. If you don't own Son, there's no reason to buy him. That Chelsea fixture is too tough of a fixture to do it. If you really maverick, you could go for it. But my recommendation would be, if you're an owner, keep him. But if you're not an owner, just simply wait for after the Chelsea game. If we see Spurs are playing a little bit better, then definitely we can look at bringing him in pre-game week 23 and definitely look at captaining him. So now going on to the game week 21 review. So finally, those of you who love the team selections, you can finally get the goods here. So 74 points for game week 21, but do remember we took a -4 hit. We will be talking about those transfers a little bit later on, but 70 points saw a green arrow to about that 170k mark. So another consecutive green arrow. I'm just kind of hoping that we can continue this green arrow train going into game week 22, because that should see us boost up the ranks even more. But the transfers that we did make this week was we took Harvey Barnes in as well as Calvert-Lewin in for Che Adams, and we also took out Rafinha. So Rafinha did manage to get an assist, but Che Adams came off the bench for Southampton, so I was happy with that move. Although Calvert-Lewin didn't bag in this game against Newcastle, which was quite surprising, I do think the upcoming fixture for Everton against Leeds should be quite good for Calvert-Lewin. I'm just hoping that he can get off the bounce. But the big talking point of the week was obviously bringing in Harvey Barnes. Those of you who were in the Deadline with Dayvy live stream, apologies if you guys did miss that, because I think this was a shot out of left field. Kind of never really spoke about captaining Harvey Barnes, but I just kind of had a feeling on Saturday morning that I wanted to bring in the Leicester midfielder and go for the captaincy option. Just a little bit of a standout, more of a differential. I think in the top 10k he was captained by less than 0.5% of people. Now with Mo Salah absolutely banging 2 goals against West Ham, it doesn't look like that captaincy actually paid off. I was kind of considering going for Salah as a safe option over Barnes, but I just went for the differential in the end. But that move does look like it paid off. I know Rafinha got the assist, but I think overall these two did outperform it with the -4, especially because of the captaincy option. Maybe if I didn't captain Barnes, I would have gone for Gundogan, which would have been a loss in terms of the captaincy, but not getting into too much detail about that. Let's get on and look at the team reviews. So firstly, Johnston in that keeper position was massively disappointing against Fulham. I honestly thought that this game would be a draw. That's what I kind of predicted, but I thought it would be more on the receiving end of a 0-0 or a 1-1, not a 2-2. So Johnston there losing that clean sheet point, but luckily he did get a save point, which took him to 2. And I was kind of hoping that West Brom can get a good performance against Sheffield United next game week, and then he can finally get a clean sheet for us, because since he's come into the squad, literally done nothing at all. The rest of the defense was a little bit more pleasing. Now Cancelo was benched and he didn't actually come on. The strange thing about those Man City subs is they were basically rested for the entire game. I think Man City used 1 sub in the end. I think they brought on Rodri injury right at the end, but Sterling, Cancelo, none of those players came on. Diaz managed to start and get 2 bonus points, which took him up to 8, and then Dallas scored a goal against Leicester, who took my other Leicester option, which was James Justin, to just a measly 1 point. So a little bit disappointing there. I thought that James Justin could have got a return in this one. If you look at the rest of my players, I got Bamford in, so I wasn't really hoping for a clean sheet, more of a high scoring game. So luckily it was like that, and the players I did own managed to score. So Dallas there with the goal, Bamford with a goal and an assist, if I do recall. It might be 2 goals, apologies for that. And then Harvey Barnes also got a goal and 1 bonus point. So luckily that game was quite actually favorable for myself, but if James Justin would have got another attacking return, I think I would have been just that little bit more happy. The rest of the midfield besides Barnes and Salah was Fernandes and Gundogan, both with 3 points. Both of them were a little bit disappointing. I thought that Sheffield United game would always be a little bit close, which is why I didn't really want to go for a Man City option other than a defender. I would have gone for Cancelo, but I was worried about that rotation, which was actually correct. But if you did go for the captaincy on Gundogan, I don't think you can be too mad, as it was quite a logical decision, and it just shows that Gundogan might not be scoring every game, but for that price tag he is a good option for team value. The rest of the attack, already spoken about Bamford. Apologies if you did sell him, that must be quite a hard one to take, but then Calvert-Lewin and Watkins doing absolutely nothing, only the 2-point appearance, and the Calvert-Lewin transfer does actually look quite bad, because apparently he had 1 big chance the entire game against a Newcastle side that defensively haven't been that great. The rest of the bench, nothing much to talk about. Souček, Soufal, both blanking there. I was just kind of happy that finally Souček is on my first position without a haul, because if he managed to haul against Liverpool, I would have been quite mad at not starting him yet again. Now going on to the transfers that we are looking at for game week 22. Now these transfers I've highlighted on screen are potential transfers, but they're not really confirmed, and I think I'm more likely to use these transfers in game week 23 and just bank a transfer going into game week 22. So I think for game week 22 we will be doing no transfers, simply backing the squad. You'll see later on that I actually have quite a decent looking squad with a couple of bench options that I could play if need be, but the transfers that I am looking at for game week 23 are Harvey Barnes to Son for that lovely West Bromwich Albion fixture, and I will be captaining Son then, but I just want to kind of get as much insight in that Chelsea game as possible. I want to see Spurs a little bit more attacking. I thought they were really lackluster against Brighton, and the stats do back that up. And then the other transfer that I could consider is Souček to Grealish. Now while Souček to Grealish looks like a good move, it's made even better from the fact that I can now afford Antonio going into those lovely West Ham fixtures. So that's why I'm willing to lose Souček, because I think from an attacking point of view, Antonio is more of the mainstay. He could even be on penalties. I don't really know he's on penalties right now, but with Souček leaving the squad, it does open up that door to that West Ham triple up. And then also Grealish, just such a sensational player. We spoke about him in the watch list. I definitely think that I could be bringing him into my side and keeping him for the entire season, just because his returns have been so consistent. So these transfers aren't for game week 22. I want to reiterate that again. I will be using these transfers probably for game week 23, not both of them because I can't afford that, but one of these transfers, and then maybe Antonio coming in if I do take out Souček going into that game week 24 deadline. So now moving on to the captaincy debate, which will be the last talking point before we cover our Game Week 22 final team selection. And I have 3 options here that I think will do well. So the first choice is going to be Raheem Sterling. Now while Raheem Sterling was benched against Sheffield United, he was still my favorite captaincy option going into Game Week 21. And it's the exact same thing with Game Week 22. You can say that Raheem Sterling now has had his rest, so he's basically guaranteed to start in Game Week 22. So if you do own Raheem Sterling, I would captain him. You could always put your vice captain on someone a little bit more reliable, but it is nice to see that if Raheem Sterling's benched, he won't come on, and that opens up the door for not only a first bench option, but also a vice captaincy option. So if you have Raheem Sterling, I would go for the captaincy on him. He's 100% my favorite option. There are also the options of a Man City defender. It just might be a little bit hard to predict who's going to start, but I think now that Cancelo's also had a rest, I don't think Pep Guardiola is going to be benching him before that Liverpool fixture coming up shortly. So Raheem Sterling, my favorite option, but then Fernandes and Salah are probably more realistic, as these two players are highly owned in FPL, and currently both of these are in my squad. So I have a double up in the Man City defense, and then I also have Gundogan, but also Fernandes and Salah. So Fernandes and Salah is probably the more safe options to go for. Both of them have home fixtures. Bruno Fernandes faces Southampton, and then Mo Salah plays Brighton. Out of these two fixtures, I definitely think that Southampton at home game is better for Bruno Fernandes than the Brighton fixture, because Brighton fixture on a little bit of a run of consecutive clean sheets. I think it's 3 clean sheets in a row, and they haven't been facing this low tier opposition. They've actually actually been playing some good teams from an attacking point of view, which worries me a bit about that Mo Salah captaincy. So when Brighton faced Liverpool earlier in the season, it was 1-1, and with the form that Mo Salah is in, I'm just kind of hoping that continues. Having scored 2 goals, I think that could be a good shout for that Brighton captaincy. The one thing that you must also take into account is that Mane was out injured. So if Mane's out injured again, I think that Mo Salah is definitely keen to start. But if Sadio Mane is back and raring to go, Mo Salah could be benched. The reason I'm saying this is that we saw on the weekend Firmino was benched because of fatigue. Klopp came out and said that he has to rest and rotate players, and Mo Salah started the last 3 and played 90 minutes. And with Man City coming up on the horizon, I am a little bit worried about some rotation for Mo Salah. This could be starting the game and coming off at 60 minutes, but from a captaincy point of view, you always want your captain to play the full 90, as that gives them the maximum amount of opportunity to score goals. So that's something that I'm going to have to consider maybe a little bit closer to the deadline. Maybe tomorrow I can hear news of a potential benching or something like that. Maybe we get the Liverpool team news a couple of days in advance, which definitely won't happen, but that's just something I want you guys to consider when you do look at Mo Salah, because I don't want it to be a surprise if he does land up on the bench. With Bruno Fernandes, I don't think that's going to happen. We saw United draw to Arsenal. They're basically in a position now where they have to rack up some points if they want to continue to challenge for the title. So I do think that Bruno Fernandes will play against Southampton, and I definitely think he'll get a large majority of the minutes. So if you're kind of going for a safe option that's going to play, I definitely think that Bruno Fernandes could be an option. But if you want to go for the best option, I definitely think that Raheem Sterling's where it's at. But let's continue this debate and go over the Fantasy Football Hub predictions going into Game Week 22. This is a new addition that I've added to the captaincy. This is basically what the stats say and what the stats predict for Game Week 22, and their number one captaincy option is going to be Mo Salah with 6.6. Now these points are actually quite close, but the model that predicts this is quite conservative, so it's not going to go out there and say that Mo Salah is going to score 9 points, 10 points per se, but 6.6, 5.8, and then 5.6 for Sterling. And the interesting option as well is Rashford. So the model is actually predicting quite a comfortable win for Man United here against Southampton, and that's probably what I would say. I would say maybe a 2-0 or a 3-0 or a 3-1 to Man United. Southampton have not really been playing as well as I expected them to, but against the bigger oppositions, they definitely can put on a show, which might be something that you put into consideration, but I think the same can be said about any side in the Premier League. And I think the form is definitely on Mo Salah's side, and that's probably why he's predicted to score more. And then also Raheem Sterling there at 5.6, who I think has the highest ceiling out of all of these options. So then finally going on to the stats debate between Mo Salah and Fernandes. Maybe you are a stats type of FPL manager, and looking at the stats here, we got Mo Salah in blue and then Bruno Fernandes in red, and I think the stats are actually quite hard to compare here. I think if you look at them from a strictly shots point of view, you could look at Mo Salah and definitely think that big chances, shots in the box are on his side, so that looks like he's the better option. But then you also look at Bruno Fernandes' assisting threat, big chances created, expected assists, that's a lot higher. And the thing with midfielders is I know that goals do offer more points, but assists also offer an opportunity for points, and I think that that's where Bruno Fernandes might even himself out for Mo Salah. But at the end of the day, goals do equal more points, and that's why I think Mo Salah will be the most captain player, and I think most people will say his stats are better because of Bruno Fernandes' shots there. He's had more shots, but they have been outside the box, and the percentage of shots outside the box that go in are far less than shots in the box. That's just statistically, it's harder to save shots in the box than outside the box, unless you're an absolute banger from outside the box and an absolute shot merchant. Then maybe you can squeak a couple of those goals in, but definitely the big chances are on Mo Salah's side, and I think that slightly points to a change in form of Mo Salah, and we could see the top goal scorer in the Premier League get on account again against Brighton. The one thing I wanted to add is don't be surprised if you join the Deadline with Dayvy live stream tomorrow night and you see this in my Game Week 22 team selection. I am so tempted to captain Cancelo, it's crazy. Just because of the fact that he was rested against Sheffield United, I think that he should be back for this Burnley fixture. And if you can remember correctly, the previous game between Burnley and Man City was a 5-0 win, I do believe, for Man City. And I think out of those 5 goals, Cancelo can definitely get an assist in this one if it were to end in a similar score to previously in the season. And that's why I think Cancelo's on my radar. The one thing about Burnley is they have shown that they are capable of scoring a couple goals against Liverpool. They got that penalty. And the last thing I would want was for Burnley to get a penalty against Man City and for that to be the wipeout of Cancelo's clean sheet. So I am tempted by Cancelo, and I know I've been saying this for a couple of game weeks now that I am tempted to captain him, but I think this game week might be one of the game weeks where I'm seriously considering it. Last game week there was the risk of rotation, but I think definitely he's going to be getting minutes against Burnley in anticipation of that Liverpool fixture coming up shortly. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a reminder here that you might want to put this in the back of your mind, maybe plant the seed of the Cancelo captain, and going into that 22 deadline, we might see this in my own squad. So finally, going on to the team selection, this is the conservative option. No Cancelo captain here. We're going for Mo Salah. I think I slightly favour Mo Salah over Fernandes. It is a home fixture for Liverpool at Anfield. They always have been better. I know against Burnley that wasn't true, but I'm pretty sure in this game we could see a couple of goals for Liverpool, and hopefully Mo Salah is on the receiving end of those. So Mo Salah currently is my captain with that Fernandes vice captain. Then going on to the keeper position, we yet again have Johnston. This is a little bit of a 50-50, I think, just because of the bad form that West Ham have been in. Definitely the better fixture against Sheffield United, but in terms of West Ham, their defense has been a lot better than West Brom. So maybe against Aston Villa they could get a cheeky clean sheet, but I think right now from a fixture point of view I will be starting Johnston. Then the rest of the team kind of picks itself. We got Cancelo, Diaz. I'm just kind of hoping that Diaz starts in this one. I think that Stones definitely will, but with Laporte back from injury, we might see a little bit of rotation there, considering that Diaz has basically started every single game in the Premier League since he's come into the side. Then we have Justin against Fulham. Now Fulham have been better from an attacking and a defensive point of view, but I'm just hoping that Leicester can rebound from that loss against Leeds, and maybe Justin finally can get a haul. I mean, we've got the Cancelo haul in our bags. Maybe Justin can get a nice haul here with a clean sheet and a goal and an assist, similar to the performance that Cancelo did against West Brom, but that is simple, just thinking, and I don't want to get my hopes up too high for Justin because he hasn't really performed up to the standard that I wish that he did. Going on to the rest of the midfield, already spoke about Fernandes and Salah in depth, so Gundogan, Barnes, both have good fixtures. Just hoping for something from these two players. I mean, Gundogan has that potential for a nice little haul, so does Harvey Barnes. I was hoping that Barnes can continue this run he's had of consecutive returns in FPL. Then finally, the forward line, Bamford, Watkins, Calvert-Lewin. Now Bamford is yellow flagged, but that's simply just because of a dead leg. In a post-match interview, he did say it was a dead leg and that he should be fine for that Everton fixture. And I'm pretty sure that Leeds want to continue this form after that win against Leicester and carry on with another win against Everton, because they've actually had a run of bad fixtures before this, so I think a rebound is on the cards. And then Watkins against West Ham, I'm going to be benching most of my West Ham players here because I just think from an attacking point of view and a defensive point of view, Aston Villa have been really good this season, and I really am hoping that Watkins, although he blanked last game week, before that he had a couple of goals in those fixtures, so I'm hoping against West Ham he can get on the receiving end of an attacking return again. And then finally, Calvert-Lewin. Now the thing about Calvert-Lewin is I think if you didn't buy him for game week 21, you definitely won't buy him for game week 22. That's just simply Everton looked dreadful, Calvert-Lewin looked dreadful, and that might be a little bit of an advantage there. We're not judging the transfer over one game week, we're going to be judging it over 2 game weeks, and Calvert-Lewin against Leeds could get something. I mean, Leeds defensively haven't been great this season. I think a goal from a heading attempt could be on the cards for Calvert-Lewin, and that's what I'm kind of hoping for. Then the rest of the bench, Everton, I know Dallas has been playing out of position, but I simply can't bench any of my other starting 11 for him, and if Diaz does get benched, we could have him off the bench, and hopefully he gets us through another 7-pointer. Then Souček and Soufal, it's the same kind of reason with Dallas. I just can't simply bench any of my starting 11, so these two players have the worst fixture, so they'll be on my bench. So that's basically wrap the video, guys. Apologies if it was a little bit of a longer one. Maybe you guys enjoy the longer videos. Maybe if you don't, use the timestamps in the description below to make it a little bit easier for you to watch. But don't forget to like the video if you did, and subscribe if you're new and have not subscribed yet. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the Deadline with Dayvy live stream going into Game Week 22. I'm pretty sure it'll be less eventful than the Harvey Barnes captain, but maybe we can squeak in a nice differential captain for you guys going into that Game Week 22 deadline. I'm going to be signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.